start. Awesome. All right, hello everyone again. So good to see everyone back here. I have the great honor to introduce our executive director over at Sacred Heart Center, Tanya Gonzalez. Tanya has been the executive director at Sacred Heart since July 2016. She has over 20 years of experience working with and for Richmond's Latinx community. A bachelor's degree in Latin American Studies from Brown University and a master's in public administration from VCU, go RAIVS. And she was recognized as one of Richmond's top 40 under 40 in 2005 by Style magazine. She received the Leadership Metro Richmond U Crops Community Vision Award in May 2015. In 2018, she received the Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities Humanitarian Award. And in 2020, she was recognized as a Richmond history maker by the Valentine Museum. Coordinates a dance group at Sacred Heart Center that performs traditional Latin American and Spanish dances in the Richmond area. She also has a really cute dog. So if we could please give Tanya a warm welcome. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for that introduction. And if I had Oso here, I would bring him up on screen. But he's at his daycare today. Oso's my puppy that she mentioned there at the end, probably the most exciting fact out of my bio. I appreciate everyone being here. It's great to see friends and part of my team at Sacred Heart Center, several of our staff, several volunteers, several of our partners. So I'm very grateful that you all decided to share this time with me and hear a little bit about Sacred Heart Center and what we've been doing and some of the challenges and things we're thinking about as we continue to move through this pandemic and further ahead. I'm wondering, I don't know everyone here, and just to use our time wisely, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind to put in the chat what organization you represent, just so we could kind of see a cascade of the organizations, just so I sort of have the landscape. Or if you're not affiliated with an organization, that's okay too. If you have an area of focus that you're interested in, that would just be great to see in the chat box as we get started. So what I'm going to do today is share information about Sacred Heart Center, who we are, what we've been doing for the last few months, as well as looking ahead. And then I do want to make sure and leave time for questions and a little bit more interaction towards the end of our hour. So great. So I see a wide variety of organizations, faith-based, refugee resettlement organizations, health-related. So this is great. We have a wide variety here. Some ESL instructors, wonderful. So again, thank you for being here. I do have a PowerPoint I'll share, so give me just one moment. See if I can get it worked before, so let's hope it keeps working. Great. So you should be able to see now my PowerPoint. So March 16th, 2020 is a date that is stuck in my memory because that was the day that we decided to effectively close down our building that's over on 1400 Perry Street to the public. That was, the weekend that the COVID-19 was declared a pandemic and we all went into lockdown. So that began really a period of time that Sacred Heart Center has been reimagining ourselves, and we continue on that journey to be able to accompany the families that we serve, primarily Latinx, Spanish-speaking, Latino, Latin American families. So I want to first share, before we go into that, who we are, just in case there's anyone here that's not familiar with us. We are a community center that's in South Richmond. Again, we're on Perry Street. Our mission is to connect Latino families with tools to thrive and flourish, and we do that through a wide variety of programs that I'll talk a little bit about. And our vision is that we envision a Richmond community that actively embraces each other in our shared humanity. And I think for me, this vision which we adopted in 2018, is even more dear at this time when an embrace, is something that we can't easily feel as often. So that's a little bit about just our framework and how we operate. The work that we do, we divide into 3 broad portfolios. So, again, just thinking pre-pandemic, our community center during a regular week, which, I don't think we really have regular weeks at Sacred Heart, but we would offer adult education programs and classes and youth and children's programs daily. Basically, our doors were open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., as well as a wide variety of comprehensive human and social services that are community hub initiatives that are also offered at the center daily. We're co-housed with Sacred Heart Parish. And so the parish would offer programming then on the weekends, of course, mass and services. And I don't know, I thought I heard someone, I'm not sure if maybe they just weren't on mute, but okay. So again, these are programs and services that were provided on site, and we will, of course, eventually be coming back into our building to do that once again. I highlight that because really a key part of the way that we do our work is this sense of community, this sense of belonging, this sense of trust that our community has. So what's so important to our work is that presence. So it's been especially challenging and difficult to be operating in this virtual and remote environment because of that need for presence, that need for being physically together in our space. Our adult education programs include English as a second language. We also have a robust GED program in Spanish. We have citizenship preparation for individuals that are legal permanent residents getting ready to take their tests, their naturalization test. We offer a literacy program in Spanish for adults that did not have the opportunity to have formal education. We have a leadership institute that's also all conducted in Spanish. And the graduates receive continuing education through the University of Richmond, which is a great partnership there, continuing education credits. And then we also offer conversational Spanish classes for those non-native speakers that are working to improve their Spanish. Our youth and children's programs serve children basically from 0 to 17 years old. And we have a combination of programs that ready children for school when they're under 5, or that support children and youth outside of school, after school, middle school, high school as well. We do a parenting program that's in Spanish for families that are raising babies. And all of our youth and children's programs, a core tenet of them is that they are bilingual and bicultural, really trying to build children and youth's pride in their identities and who they are, so then they can better navigate what they'll encounter outside of Sacred Heart Center. And then lastly, our community hub, as I mentioned, wraparound health and human services. So basic needs types of activities and services like food, clothing, assistance with workforce, but then also our consulates that would come from Northern Virginia or Maryland to do mobile services. And so again, this is all pre-pandemic, things like Medicaid navigation, immigration assistance, tax assistance. So, again, we're doing these offerings daily at our center, and during a non-pandemic year, we serve about 11,000 people through all of this work. So of course, again, March 16th, everything changed in all of our worlds. And so really, the staff knows this image, this idea. We've really tried to be La Palmera, a palm tree in this time, in this complex time. So if you think of a palm tree that, it bends and it sways in the wind, the leaves may spread by the wind, but even if a hurricane comes, it might bend, even touch the ground, but it doesn't break. And so that's really been our strategy since the beginning of the pandemic. We did work very closely and very diligently as a team to move everything all of our educational offerings to virtual and online. So kudos, as well. We have some of our staff here. Spencer was a key part of making that happen for us. We've got our new ESL lead teacher on the call as well, Bill. Now I'm trying to remember everybody that was on the call, but if I miss you, it's not on purpose. But our team has done great work to move all of our adult ed and many of our youth and children's programs to virtual offerings. And being transparent, it's been, with mixed success. It's not been easy. We've been learning along the way. So we're now in our third semester of this. And each time we've tried to make improvements. We've encountered issues, and you all are maybe familiar with some of these issues, digital literacy gaps in our community, issues around equipment and accessibility with equipment, internet, even things like, if mom or dad is in their class and they're on the laptop and they only have one laptop in the family, then our child, who might also be in the children's program, doesn't have equipment to then also join on the separate program, all in the same household. So, and other things like for years, we've worked to increase our children's program offerings while parents are in classes so that the childcare barrier is mitigated. And now all of a sudden everyone's back home. So if mom or dad is in their GED class and they don't have something for their child to do, then, the childcare barriers is a barrier once again. So lots of issues that we've been navigating and working through in this process. And of course, we are in a pandemic. So being in class may not be a priority for our community at this time. We know that Latinx in particular here in Richmond, Latin American individuals have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. At one point, positivity rates were at 50% for our community. And so, if you have COVID, you're not going to be joining your class as you might hope to, or if you've lost your job, or just the sheer sense of loss that our community has been going through with the deaths that have been occurring. So with all of that said, we still have about 50% of our regular enrollment in our virtual program. So while that number is, half, I would argue that people are overcoming even more obstacles to actually join and be there. So I actually think it's quite incredible that it is still half of our regular enrollment. Now, for some of our programs, we have used a hybrid model that's worked well. So some of our youth programs, we've done field trips in person, especially, over the summer and the fall when the weather was better, and then the virtual component. And those have also been successful to keep youth engaged, in particular because they are, on the computer for their virtual education. Here. So yes, so these are some pictures from some of what we've done with kids. Our team has been very creative. So as part of this hybrid model, we've also literally built, you see on the right there, kits that then we deliver to families or sometimes mail. We use our bus or if we're able to, get it out in the mail, we do that. And then the picture up at the top left is a family that sent us, the children using their kits. They sent us a text picture of that. And so just really having to be creative in trying things. And then if they don't work, continue to adjust like that palm tree. So that's what we've done with really all of our existing adult education and children and youth programming during this time. Now, this is some of our art exhibits. This is another unique example that I'll give. So we did a virtual exhibit. This was over the summer with our Casa Lapis bilingual art program for middle school students. Our art instructor, Alfonso, literally went and visited every student at their home. They would do their artwork at home and he would collect it. And then we exhibited it in our building and we're able to share that through video and live streaming and virtually. So again, just thinking out of the box, really being stretched as a team, but trying to meet the community where they are in a safe way. So the other aspect of our work and where we were called to step into was crisis response. And that's been very incredible, both from the perspective of the support we've received from volunteers, donors, foundations, companies, as well as the need that we've been seeing out there. And again, we have members in our team that are on the call that have been key to this. Sarah, who introduced me at the beginning, particular, there may be others as well on the call. So during regular operations, we work with Bainbridge Community Ministries to operate a daily food pantry on our site. And so part of our work during this pandemic has been to expand food access. So we've expanded that in our center building and have been operating this expanded pantry since the beginning of April of last year. In total, have fed about 15,000 people to date. And then a few months into the pandemic, began also doing deliveries to families that are COVID positive that need to be in quarantine. And so we continue to do that one day a week. I was just checking in with our staff because normally that's Fridays. Of course, tomorrow they're calling for snow, and our incredible team decided they were going to do the route today to get it done so that, people would still get their food, but we won't have to deal with, the bad roads tomorrow. So just a testament to the dedication of our team to try and make sure that no one goes hungry during this time. The food pantry has been operating through donations from the larger community, directly food donations. We've had numerous organizations, some probably on this call, that have done food drives for us. We have a great partnership with Feed More that we've been able to get weekly perishable food and fresh food. And then we have been able to secure several grants from local foundations to ensure that this is continuing. The other aspect of our work in terms of crisis response has been a financial assistance program that we've been able to begin. So that started mid-April of last year as well. Also thanks to a funder that wanted to see help go specifically to mixed status families. So these are families that have at least one member that is undocumented and were left out of the original CARES Act federal funding that happened last year. So the way that bill was written, this was the first help package that Congress passed. The way that bill was written, let's say there's a mom and dad and children, and let's say mom is a citizen, children are citizens, and dad is undocumented. That entire family was left out of getting any of that stimulus payment because one person in the family was undocumented. And we had a funder that was so concerned about that he called us and said, what can you do? What can you come up with? And we sent a proposal, and a week later we had funds to begin this program. So it was really literally kind of a miracle that fell from the sky. So to date, we've been operating this program, again, our amazing team, and we're approaching 900 families, probably by the Monday of next week, we'll be at 900 families that we've assisted. And we're directly paying the funds to their housing provider. So that's to the apartment complex, to the landlord, to the mobile home park, wherever they're living, occasionally mortgages as well. And we've distributed approaching $1 million in funds. And again, that's been thanks to local foundations, to donors that have taken an interest in this. And it's all going to families that wouldn't normally qualify for federal assistance. So that's been incredible. And it's also a lot. It's also a lot to manage and do. And I want to also say that we've done all of this with our existing team. So we've really used, I gave the example of a palm tree, but it's also been a huge puzzle, and all of our staff are the different puzzle pieces. And they've been jumping in where they've been needed to be able to serve our community during these times that none of us have seen before. So that's really what our crisis response work has looked like. The last piece to that I do want to share as well has been trying to keep our community informed. And we do a lot of that through radio outreach, through social media, through our very robust Facebook page. In particular, when the pandemic first started, and some of you all may have seen the article about the translation that occurred recently, not to call them out, but Department of Health was using Google Translate, and I believe it was translating that the vaccine is not required when it said something totally different in English. But that's what it was saying in Spanish. And so that was occurring at the start, and it's still occurring. Many of you on the call are familiar with language access issues and challenges. But so what we were doing, in particular when the pandemic started, was going live on Facebook, on the local radio stations, to share information that was coming out of the governor's office, out of the local government offices, that wasn't being immediately translated. So we didn't have the capacity to physically translate it in writing, but we at least were sharing it on the radio, on our Facebook page, to get the word out to our community. And we do that weekly through 2 Spanish language radio stations. It is airtime that we pay for through grants. And those are Radio Poder, 1380 AM, and Ultra Radio Richmond, which is 94.1 FM. So that's really what our response work has looked like. So thinking ahead, there's a lot of needs out there. Many of you on the call work with immigrant and refugee populations, and so you're familiar. I think for us, what we're seeing, and just thinking about the future and what recovery will look like, there's some things that I'm in particular thinking about, and that we've begun talking about internally with the staff. So first and foremost is, more spaces for healing and for processing grief and loss. We know that, as I mentioned, the Latino population in Richmond has been disproportionately impacted, and we've seen people be lost to this pandemic, and for other reasons as well. And our community has expressed a need for, whether it's support groups or just healing spaces, to be able to process and just come together once it's safe to do so, to move through this grief. So we're beginning to think about that. Mental health as an issue has been a need that we've seen for many years, and Sacred Heart Center has been working diligently to increase those offerings through partnerships with Safe Harbor, with Commonwealth Catholic Charities, and with others. But we do need more spaces that can offer bilingual, bicultural, or in Spanish ways to heal, as well as mental health support. We're also thinking about, what is this pandemic and virtual learning going to have on our children, in particular English language learners, and what supports will be needed as they come back into the classroom. So again, in conversations with partners, with the schools, to think through, is that additional programming that we'll need to look at, or is it things that we can do in our existing programming to support families through that transition? And then I think for us, I started in the beginning highlighting our space, and this idea of coming together as a community is so key to our work and to who we are at Sacred Heart Center. So I do think we're going to need to think through, what does that mean to come back into the building, and how do we help people feel comfortable again, to be together, to be close together. And I think for us in particular, we are branching out, where we've opened a small, right now, satellite in Chesterfield County at St. Augustine's Catholic Church. Spencer, who's here, if he's still here with us, he's helping us coordinate that satellite. And so we'll be building programming out there. So, thinking of our growth, thinking of the impact of the pandemic, what does it mean to be together, but we might have now, as I mentioned, more than one location, and how can we still build that sense of community across space, whether that's virtual space, whether that's social distancing space, or if it's 2 separate locations. Lastly, I do think for us at Sacred Heart Center, the virtual component of our programs will be staying. So we are looking at, what does that mean when we come back in the classroom, and how will we continue to offer virtual options? One learning that's been very interesting for us, I guess you could call it a silver lining, has been, we've been able to include people with this virtual learning that live in other states, that live in other areas that would not be able to normally come to the center. And they've been able to connect to our classes. Or for some of our students that do live in Richmond, maybe they've traveled home to their home country and they can still connect as long as they have internet to their class, and not miss class. So it has given us, some accessible, or I would say more accessible opportunities, in ways that we hadn't thought about before we ventured into this, or were forced to venture into this virtual environment. So I'll just start wrapping up here, and then I'm hoping that you all have questions or thoughts to share. There's many ways to get involved. Sarah that introduced me and is on with us today. And of course, this whole summit is about volunteering. We do have limited volunteer opportunities currently. Obviously, right now, our building is still not fully open to the public, but we're operating daily. Our food pantry, we're still looking for ESL instructors that are volunteer and willing to do virtual classes. We have had groups do service projects during this time. A lot of it does require planning and talking through. So again, if you're interested in learning more about that, connect with us on our website, and we can get you involved. So, just thinking about the time, talent, treasure formula, there's definitely ways, no matter how big or small, that we can all contribute. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up and just see if there's questions from you all. I'll leave this slide up just a moment in case you need my email or cell. I can't see everybody yet, but in a moment I'll take stop the screen sharing, and then I'll be able to see everyone. Any questions?
And feel free to have, you can type your question in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask away.
This is probably for Sarah. Hi, Sarah. This is Wayne Swatlusky. And
Hi, Wayne.
how are you?
Doing well.
Do you have a need, and would I be qualified to work with the ESL program virtually until I'm able to come back? Well, even after I'm able to come back, I was helping with the food pantry and with the children before, and hope to be able to do that again. But is there a need for virtual ESL, even though I don't speak any Spanish?
Right. So yes, Wayne has been or had been helping us at our food bank. Thank you so much for that. And he was very involved with our children's program pre-pandemic. And Wayne, we do have virtual volunteer opportunities. I saw Bill who rose his hand. Did you want to say something about the ESL volunteering?
Yes, I would. Hey, Wayne. We
Hi,
spoke.
Bill.
Yeah, we spoke briefly at another one of these calls during this conference, because you had expressed the fact that you don't speak Spanish, and
Right.
I was joining with you saying I don't speak Spanish either, and I've been teaching ESL here for a while. And certainly we still have some slots on Thursdays that we'd be thrilled to bring you in on. And one of the things that I do, or one of the things I want to do, is provide support for new volunteers onboarding, so they don't feel like they're just kind of like dropped into a class. So,
Sure.
okay, so when the time is right, check out with Sarah, and then you and I can hook up and we'll take care of it.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, because I would be available to do that. I haven't had any, I mean, I taught GED way, 100 years ago, but I never had any training in teaching English as a second language, and I'd be happy to, to go through that training or whatever it might take.
Awesome.
I'll guide you. I'll guide you.
Okay, great.
If I can do it, you can do it. Okay. If I can do it, anybody can. Okay.
You don't know me very well, Bill.
But yeah, but the same is true with me.
Thank you,
Well,
Wayne.
thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Other questions?
I do have a question.
Yes.
What are those? I mean, I know trying to be negative, and I love the work that you do. I think it's amazing. But I know it requires to have organized people in order to have an organization like you manage. But what are those challenges and barriers that I know besides COVID and all the situation and all the changes that we all have to face, but what are those barriers and challenge that immigrants, when especially those undocumented groups that you serve, have faced every day? I would like to hear that.
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think what I'll say first is our community, and this would be inclusive of really anyone, regardless of immigration status, never ceases to amaze me with their strength and resilience. And with that said, there's a lot of barriers. So language continues to be one that we see. And as Sarah mentioned, I cringed a little bit when she said over 20 years, but that's true. I've been working here in Richmond since 2000, starting as a volunteer with my community. And we've come a long way. When I think back as to what resources were available back then, as compared to now around language access and interpreting and translation, but it's still not where it needs to be. So there's still plenty of times when a parent can go into a school or into any governmental office and not be able to communicate. And that's also the case for other languages, in addition to Spanish. So I think language continues to be a barrier, although it has improved somewhat. I think being able to navigate all the different systems is definitely a barrier. And a lot of that, if people aren't informed or they don't know where to go, or they may be vulnerable to exploitation. So, something will shift. So an example that comes to mind is recently the General Assembly, last year, I should say, made driver's licenses more accessible. They created the driving privilege card for undocumented Virginia residents, which is an amazing advancement. But it also, with the pandemic, opened up a whole Pandora's box of challenges for our community to be able to actually get it. And so then what crops up are businesses and people, and some of them do good work and are charging to do that. And others, they're charging to get a DMV appointment online. Is that something someone should be paying for? I would argue, no. I think you should be able to, do that or find help to get that. And that's one example. Or even, getting a copy of your Virginia taxes that you now have to present for that card. So there's all these things that kind of become dominoes, and it just, if the one domino falls, then everything else, falls with it. So system navigation, and especially in the changing environment. Another thing on the horizon is if we do have any change, whether it's executive order or actual legislation around immigration reform, being able to really inform our community about those changes in a truthful way. We have to combat the people that are out there looking to exploit our community. So those, I think, are a couple that immediately come to mind. I think you know, over the years working with individuals who are undocumented, that colors every aspect of one's life. So if you're scrambling to find work, or to, you know, you're doing day labor, or you're going to work somewhere until they realize you don't have the papers, you know, that sets up a ripple effect, negative ripple effect to many other areas. So I personally feel that if we did have immigration reform, that would go a long way to helping a lot of the other issues that people face. And I'd be curious, you know, there's many experts here, so there may be other barriers that people could add, but those are a few that do come to mind. Spencer?
One that crops up a lot, and I worked in adult ed with Hannah Bishop as her assistant, and one that we see a lot are young people who come to the U.S. in their last couple of years of high school, and they're in a really difficult spot because they don't speak English yet. The schools really aren't really happy about them being around because they lower test results and create challenges for them. And so often they get sent to us, and we can't work with them yet because our adult programs don't fit. And we have programs for young people like that who are in school, but we can't get them into our adult ed programs. And so there's this gray area. And I think one of the challenges probably for a lot of folks would be that going through bureaucracy is just that much harder. And it's already hard for people who are from here, but getting sent here and there, at some point, it'd be really easy just to say, you know what, I'm just going to find a job. And, you know, so I always really admire the people who do come and stick it out. And by the time they get to us and they're taking a class or they're signing up for a program, that means they had a lot of initiative and a lot of courage to push beyond that, because it would be really easy to say, this bureaucracy is so complicated, it's such a mess, I'm just going to find a nice job, make some money, send it home, and forget about the rest. So
Yeah, thanks for adding that. Laura, I see your hand.
Hi, I haven't figured out how to raise my hand on here, only clap, and I thought that might be confusing.
That's okay, go ahead.
I am an ESL teacher. Up until December, I was also working with international students at VCU until that program closed. But one of the things my colleague and I are doing with our students, most of whom are not native speakers, we're having a virtual lunch or coffee hour, just because the pandemic has been very isolating for a lot of them. And even for, you know, for folks that are fluent, when you don't have that regular opportunity to practice English with folks. So we're kind of having sort of an informal time for them to just talk and ask questions and practice and things like that. And I'm wondering if there's a need for that with Sacred Heart. Like, I know you do tutoring, but something like a coffee hour, a virtual coffee hour, or a conversation type of thing. I've done this kind of stuff like with libraries in the past, where libraries will have a conversation club.
Like a cafe, conversation cafe.
Yeah. Just like a free time, like there's no lesson plan or anything, just a free time for folks to talk.
I think it's something we could talk more about with our adult education team. I mean, Bill's part of that, Spencer's part of that. He mentioned Hannah Bishop. So I don't know, Laura, if you jotted down my email that I had on the screen, I could put in the chat. But if you want to reach out, I can connect you with the right.
Yeah, if you could put in the chat, and I'll save the chat so I can have that, so I don't lose it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Of course, thanks for the idea. Other questions, thoughts, contributions?
Tanya, have you noticed, this is Wayne again, have you
Yes.
noticed any any change of feeling or hopefulness in the community with the change of administration? Have there been any changes affected on a federal level that are relieving some of the anxiety or instilling some hope, some greater hope and less fear in the folks than what I'm sure had been in the last 4 years?
I think the short answer would be yes, a seed of hope, but at the same time, I think our community is waiting for actions. I mean, we have seen, you know, a moratorium on deportations, although I think a few were still occurring, and that was attributed to people in ICE that weren't following that moratorium, which is another conversation. But we saw that for, you know, 100 days to be able to examine policies and procedures. But I mean, I would just speak for myself to say that, you know, I'm waiting to see what further actions are taken. I think preliminary actions do give me at least a little bit of hope.
Sure.
But would like to see more. I mean, the reality is that we haven't had comprehensive immigration reform in our country for decades. So I think there's certain things that our new president can do through executive order, which we saw similar actions, you know, that President Obama had done. Although there were a lot of deportations in his administration also. So I think time will tell as to where it all lands. And that's more my personal feeling. I'll have to say that.
Well, we remain hopeful.
Yes, yes, yes. Thanks for that question, Wayne.
Sure. You're welcome.
Any other questions, thoughts? Let's see. Look at the chat here. Yes, cautiously optimistic. I like that phrase, Laura. Thank you.
I still have to share this. One of them asked me when there was officials, like, so he can't be president again? Are you sure? So I think they're all breathing a sigh of relief on Inauguration Day.
And part of, I mean, I didn't say that directly, but when I spoke about healing spaces, you know, part of that I think too is a need for the community that we serve at Sacred Heart Center, what we've been experiencing over the last few years in regards to immigration enforcement, in regards to the rhetoric against immigrants, and how people have been treated.
Yes.
I have a really quick question. First, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming and speaking. And it's amazing the work that you guys have been doing at Sacred Heart, especially within your community. And so I just wanted to ask, what's your process been like, or your experience throughout these years working within your community in gaining trust, so that when issues like this do arise, people know that they can come to you, they know that you're going to be a resource, and they're not afraid to share their fears with you as an organization?
That's a great question. I think for me personally, it's been one of my greatest honors to be able to witness over the years people's celebrations and tragedies and triumphs and failures. So I think a lot of it has just been present, like coming back to presence. That idea of presence and of being there. I mean, that's what it's come down to for me, to be accessible to people, to show up, to respond. And, you know, we're all only human, so it's never perfect. And, you know, there's only so much we can each do. But prior to Sacred Heart, I was with the city of Richmond and also working closely with families. And so, you know, some of it has been, at least I think for me personally, my longevity, and I've been there even though, you know, I've moved around a bit. So people have gotten to know me. I've seen families grow and children, you know, now having their children. So, but I think, you know, if I had to put it in one phrase, it would simply come down to being there and to witnessing and seeing people, meeting them where they are, and never doubting their dignity when they're in front of you, whether it's, you know, celebrating a GED graduation or, sharing, about a tragedy that's occurred, and sometimes horrific things that they've trusted me with. So hopefully that answers your question.
I'd love to echo what Tanya said. I've seen you, Tanya, like on social media, like dancing. And to me, like, it's a very like concrete, like example of how you show up in the community, and a very, this is something you do and it's part of your culture and you're sharing it with others who enjoy the same thing. And I think that's also been definitely my experience is, when I've shown up at sort of the times that people don't expect me to show up. I think that goes so far in community building, and definitely the sense of loss that we have over the last year of not being able to show up, and me like going to someone's home and not being able to actually cross the threshold to visit them has been for me really hard, and I know has impacted everyone doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
A thing I would add is that I think, Tanya's done a great job and not only setting the model, but also in making sure, I think, that the people that work at the center aren't just committed to the community, but I don't think there's a pretentious bone in anyone's body that works at the center. And I think that comes across, that when the interactions that people have are never, there's never arrogance or, people really feel, like you said, everyone's on the same level. We're all working together. So it takes away that sense of, oh, here's a service provider and we're paternalistically giving you a service. We're a community working together to deal with a challenge or work through something. And so I think that comes across to the community, and that's generally what I get back as well from them.
Thank you. Beautiful.
I have a question about that. Because I imagine, since you've been in different roles with the city and in the past, is there something, and granted, I can't imagine that you lived during a pandemic during that time, but if you were to imagine yourself in a different role in the past, and do you feel like you've been able to maybe make a difference in a different way, and not only you, but maybe just the community, Sacred Heart community, or working in a nonprofit in Richmond, that that's something that you have come to value through this challenging experience for everybody? Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, I've definitely made mistakes, and there's things I've had to apologize for in my career. And there's things I would do differently if I went back and did it again, for sure.
We're all human.
Yes, we're all human. Thank you. And with that said, I don't think I have regrets either. I will say that, as was mentioned already, dance is one of my passions, in addition to just service. So, and we've diligently worked at the Sacred Heart Center to build cultural programming that we're offering. But I would love to grow that even more. So, if I had to say, what would I maybe looking ahead, just slightly changing your question a little bit, but looking ahead, what would I like to see more of? I would like to be able to have us do more artistic, cultural programming. In Spanish, there's a phrase that we say, la cultura cura, which would be culture heals. So coming back to thinking about healing spaces that I was mentioning before, I mentioned mental health counseling support groups, yes, but even thinking creatively about how can we do a dance program that would have as its undercurrent to heal, or art therapy, or these other creative things. So that's what I would like to see more of in the future. Great. Oh, Spencer, I think you're talking, but we can't hear you. I don't know, you're off mute, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of the people that work at the center are people also who first came to the center to take advantage of services or classes or things like that. And so, you know, like that helps reflect back to the community that this is their space. It's actually, you know, it's them, you know, they're here, and you know, they're the community's invested in the center as a whole. So I think that's a really important, you know, part of what goes on at the center, and it ensures that when we're making decisions at the center, that we're thinking through the lens of the community as well. And I know Tanya is, and Claudia and everyone who works is always makes sure when we go through decision-making processes that we're thinking that way, and that we're involving the community in making major decisions.
Yeah, that's, and a lot of that has to do with our identity, both as a Catholic organization and a Jesuit organization, that we are centering our community, open to all, but grounded in those faith values. Well, I know we're approaching our time. This has been an amazing conversation for me, very, very nurturing. So I appreciate all of your comments and questions. I hope it's been helpful and useful to you all as well. Sarah, I don't know if you want to say anything to wrap us up.
No, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Again, if you are interested in volunteering, please visit our website and I'll be happy to orientate you. So I think we can, I think it's a good time to end. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Be
Gracias.
careful if the weather comes.
Yeah. Stay warm.